Hi, I'm Patrick Giguère with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology, and welcome to my channel and happy Winter Solstice. Today is December the 21st, 2021. It's the Winter Solstice, and this is one of the, I guess you could say, high holy days of the year, now through the 25th. And I'll get into why that is. And some quick admin thanks to everybody who watches the channel, likes, subscribes, comments, shares the videos. It all helps the algorithm, it all helps the channel. So I greatly appreciate it. So anyway, I'm going to do my best today to be brilliant, be brief, and be gone. I don't want to throw too much out. I've been pretty long-winded these last couple months, but there's a lot of shit going down, a lot of shit's about to go down. So anyway, Winter Solstice. For those of us here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the sun's yearly low point. On the other side of it, on June 21st, we have a summer solstice. And this is actually where the glyph of the cross comes from. So basically the vertical bar on the cross is the summer and winter solstice, summer being the high point, winter being the low. And then the crossbar that makes it a cross, that represents the two equinoxes. So we're talking spring and fall equinox. So right around March 21st and September 21st on the other side of that circle. So what we call the Celtic cross, you know, with the equilateral cross with the circle in the middle, it's not technically a Christian symbol. It's a very old symbol. Even in ancient China, that was the glyph for like a healer or a shaman type of a person. So, and this cross has been going around for so long because, again, it's a glyph that represents the movement of the sun, the four key points, two solstices, two equinoxes. And an interesting thing is that people in modern times call this day, December 21st, the winter equinox, they call it the first day of winter, but for thousands of years this was called Midwinter's Day. It was only, I don't know, maybe in the last several decades that they call it the first day of winter. So I don't go by that, I call it Midwinter's Day, because really the times that the seasons change are the halfway points between the solstices and equinoxes. So first day of winter is something more like November the 7th. That's halfway in between fall equinox and winter solstice. So that's what I go by, but the college boy, college girl science of, I don't know, the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years calls today first day of winter. But whatever. So kind of a tangent. Anyway, winter solstice, it's this day and the 3 days following are the darkest days of the year. So this marks the sun's low point for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. So from our perspective on Earth, the sun appears to move northward and southward through the year. So from December 25th through the 21st of December, thereabouts, the sun starts rising and setting farther northward on the horizon, and this is because of the tilt in the Earth's axis and the Earth's wobble. So the sun's not moving. Well, if you're a flat earther, the sun moves, but I don't say that derogatorily. People can believe whatever the hell they want. Not for me though, but anyway. The sun doesn't move, but the Earth wobbles on its axis, so it appears to do this. It tilts. So that's why we have summer and winter, is because whatever hemisphere you're in, you get about 6 months where the summer, where the where the sun is seemingly closer to your location, and then 6 months when it's seemingly farther away. So December 21st, it marks basically the death of the sun, because from our perspective in the Northern Hemisphere, from summer solstice around June 21st through the winter solstice, December 21st, the sun keeps rising and setting 1 degree lower per day on the horizon. Keeps going south from our point of view. So December 21st is the sun's depth. For those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun goes no farther south. If you live in the Southern Hemisphere, we're talking Africa, Australia, New Zealand, etc. It's opposite, winter's summer, summer's winter. But as an American in the Northern Hemisphere, that's a perspective I speak from. And, really, Western civilization is a Northern Hemisphere kind of a phenomenon. So anyway, the winter solstice is the depth of the sun. So the sun reaches that depth on the 21st, on this day, and the sun stays where it is on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of December. So it stays at that southern point. Then on the 25th of December, what we call Christmas in the Western world, the sun starts moving northward again. So that heralds the return of spring. So this has a lot to do with, this has everything to do with, in the story of Jesus, why he died. He was dead for 3 days and he rose again, because the sun goes southward, the constellation of Scorpio stings it, gives it the kiss of death in the fall. It dies in Sagittarius, the next sign, where it is now in sidereal astrology, which I'm doing. I'm a Vedic astrologer, so I'm reading sidereal, which is visible sky astrology. So Scorpio, at the end of November, beginning of December, stings the sun, gives it the kiss of death, and in Sagittarius, it dies. But then on the 25th, it rises again. It starts moving north again. And this is a whole other video, but I'll talk about this a little bit. Basically, Jesus is a sun god. The Bible is, I call it the big book of astrology. So Jesus is a sun god. It doesn't take away from the message. It's a very good message, but people fight and bicker and bitch about how, he was a real guy and he really turned water into wine and he really walked on the surface of the Sea of Galilee. They're completely missing the point. Jesus is the sun represents the soul. Jesus is the soul. The sun and the soul are analogs for one another. The sun is the physical representation of the soul of the cosmos, the soul of the universe. And it's a what do I call it? Not a miniature, a maxiature. It's the soul on a grand scale. And the sun in astrology deals with the soul. So, yeah, Jesus is the soul. So really, when people say, Jesus told me to do so and so, very religious people, they're really saying, my soul told me to do this. When I say God told me, it really means my soul told me, because, they say Jesus is God. Well, yeah. We're all God. We're all sons of God, daughters of God, because you all have a soul. We're all God in human form. So, yeah, this is, anyway, the story of Jesus is all about the movement of the sun. So that's why Jesus dies for 3 days, because the sun, from our perspective in the Northern Hemisphere, seemingly dies for 3 days, stays at that low point, it keeps rising and setting at the same low point on the horizon, and then on the 25th, it's born again. And there's even a whole thing here where on these days, the 3 stars of Orion's belt point to Sirius, which points to where the sun rises in the east. So the 3 wise men following Jesus, the 3 wise men following the star in the east to the birth of Jesus. So the 3 wise men are the stars of Orion's belt. They follow the star in the east, Sirius, which points to the rising, the birth of God's Son, because again, the 25th of December is the rebirth of the sun after it goes south and it dies. So it's a big astrological story. Now, that's all well and good. It's heady stuff. What does that mean to us? Well, this is the time of the year to plan your next year. to plan your rebirth. You know, you're going to be born in the next year. You know, this is a time of year where not a lot of things get done. People are celebrating with their families or hanging out with friends. You're not really getting a lot done, so it's a time to plan what your rebirth into the next year is going to be. And you can do virtually anything with your year if you put your mind to it, and you get your ducks in a row. So that's what the solstice is all about. You know, in ancient times, when this time of year was called Yule or Yol, Yule was a celebration of having made it this far into the winter and having made it through the depths of the sun's progress to the south. Yule is it's a Germanic holiday. So if you live in a place like Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, even Germany, Britain, it gets pretty dark, and it stays pretty dark in the winter. You don't get a whole lot of daylight. So that's a big deal, for us with heated homes and all these comforts. Winter comes and goes and it's not a big deal, but when you live in a cold place and or a place without a lot of daylight in the winter, that's a big friggin' deal. When the sun starts to come north again and the days lengthen, it means that you're going to have food again. People used to run out of food during the winter, so that's why in Iceland they have the Yule meal is a sheep's head. So that was like the last thing you wanted to eat, out of all your stored food, because it's like, head doesn't have a lot of meat on it, and it's pretty gnarly eating a sheep's head with its eyes looking up at you. And the eyes are one of the most nutritious parts of it, so that's kind of an irony to the whole thing. So it's not a pleasant meal, so people in Iceland will still eat it to commemorate what the ancestors went through in those harsh conditions. So yeah, it's a time to be grateful for the year that's passed, the harvest that it's given you, the harvest, whatever your harvest happens to be. For most of us, it's money. We're not growing food. And so it's a time to be grateful for your harvest, the fact that your harvest lasted you through the depths of the winter. And it's a time to feel joy and anticipation for the coming year, and a time to plan that year. Because too, in the old days, in places where they had, actual winter, people didn't have much to do because, the food's not growing. So you had time to work on crafts. People built weapons, they built jewelry, they built all kinds of boats, all kinds of different things like that. And they just had time to think. They wrote poems, they played music, they did whatever the hell they were inclined to do. So it's a time to reflect and think ahead and plan your next year out, plan your life out. So now for this particular year, for this 2021 Winter Solstice, I'll just talk about the chart for a few minutes. So if you caught the December video, you caught the eclipse video, you're pretty well versed in my perspective on this. But if you're not, I'll give a little recap here. So it doesn't take an astrologer to tell you that the world is in a really weird and interesting place. So there's an old Chinese, it's a joke, but it's also a curse. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek curse, but they say, may you live in interesting times. So here we are. We are in the Hangover. From 1945 till 2020, that is a period of time that I call the 1945 party. So we got very spoiled in the Western world, especially us Americans. We thought we could rule the world because Mommy and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa won World War II, and it's like, I've got plenty of these people in my family. Even if people didn't have parents that were in World War II, then they're very self-righteous about the fact that people their parents' age were in the war and supposedly won it. I don't agree with that either. I think the Nazis really won World War II because they got to come here after the war. Germany was destroyed and the Allies declared victory out of pure embarrassment. That's another. The point is, we had a party. 1945 kicked off a big, long 75-year party where we were really spoiled and decadent and kind of degenerate. And, you know, I love my country, but I don't like the brattishness that took hold. We've had a very brattish 75 years. And so the party's over now, and you can't stay drunk and high forever. Eventually you have to go through your hangover and feel terrible. So that's what we're in right now. That's what this whole COVID world has been. And this is something we have to go through, you know. And, you know, I was talking to a guy today I hadn't talked to in a long time, and, you know, he's not really shocked by any of this. He's been following, you know, the non-mainstream point of view on things for a long time. Tommy. You know, he's not shocked by any of this. And I was telling him, I was like, well, you know, this has always been going on. It's just that the world is coming out of the closet in the last couple of years. You know, the way the world has really been run has just been coming out of the closet. I think it started coming out of the closet around 9/11. You know, our whole unicorns and rainbows world, especially as Americans, started falling apart. And we started seeing what was really going on, but a lot of people didn't seize this opportunity. They were in denial. And it's hard to be in denial now. We're in the full-blown hangover from the 1945 party. So that's where we stand. So anyway, let's talk about this chart. So what I do is I usually, when I talk about this, I put Sagittarius in the first house because I'm an American. Sagittarius is America's first house, the ascendant house. But I also talk about the perspective of, you know, what this means for the world, what the astrology means for the world. So we'll start with Sagittarius in the first house for America. You've got Sun and Mercury in there. So they're about 12 degrees apart. They're not close, but they're still in a sign together. And, you know, Sun and Mercury, this really, this is interesting because Sagittarius is the sign of the truth. There is no the truth, but there's a truth that like-minded people agree upon. That's the best you can ever do. But you can pursue the truth. So Sagittarius deals with the truth. It deals with philosophy, higher knowledge, worldviews. What else? Religion, spirituality. So you've got the Sun there in Sagittarius. You also have Mercury. Mercury is the intellect, it's communications, it's the media. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Media's in the spotlight. Ghislaine Maxwell is having a joke of a trial. Comey's daughter is the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney. You know, the whole thing's fucking rigged. The FBI lost the evidence. They labeled the evidence and then left Epstein's house for 4 days, and it was magically gone when they returned. But then Epstein's lawyer handed over bags of this evidence, and so the media's in the spotlight. There's all kinds of shit going on. Jussie Smollett's a liar. Said a bunch of redneck Trumpers in Chicago, of all places, tried to lynch him. It turns out it was a complete lie. You can't even drive a pickup truck or park a pickup truck in Chicago. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, media is in the spotlight there. And another thing too is our beliefs are really under a microscope because Sagittarius is beliefs. And another thing too is America is really in the spotlight because we're like the last fortress here in the world that's resisting lockdown. So then moving on, we get to Capricorn, America's second house. Capricorn for the whole world is government, it's authority, it's responsibility, it's having to suck it up and do things you don't want to do. It's when you have to bend the knee to either an authority or to someone who you owe a duty to in your life. And then second house for America is finance. It deals with finance, it deals with money, it deals with resources. So what we've got in here, we have Saturn 16 degrees, Venus in retrograde at 2 and Pluto at 1 degree. Saturn and Pluto have been together in Capricorn for quite some time. And Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, it's all about gaslighting. So, we've been getting gaslit hard by the government in the whole world for Capricorn. You know, with this whole Kung Flu story. And it's insane. I don't want to go on a rant about that. But yeah, Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn are always gaslighting. And when it's gaslighting from government. Saturn's home sign is Capricorn. So Saturn is kind of restricting government right now and making it clean itself up very slowly, but it's also making it very over-controlling. Pluto deals with control. It also deals with transformation. So yeah, government is extremely controlling and gaslighting. Now the interesting thing here is Venus is in retrograde, a degree away from Pluto. It's going to conjunct Pluto for the second time in just a couple weeks, right on Christmas, right on December the 25th. So this is really breaking down the people's relationship with government. Venus is all relationships, it's friendships, romances, diplomacy, business relationships, it's all social relationships. So to have Venus, what was it? I think it was on the 11th, Venus conjuncted Pluto for the first time when it was going direct. This was a signal that the people would start feeling very manipulated and controlled, and they already have been, but it's lighting a fuse on the people's anger. By the end of the month, you're going to see the anger explode like I talked about with December the 30th. Mars is going to step on the landmine of the eclipse degree where the solar eclipse in Scorpio happened on December the 4th. So, but to add to that, Venus is conjuncted with Pluto, now it's doing this retrograde, so people are really going to have a falling out much more than they have with government. And really, people are being really docile right now. It's like as long as they can go to the bar and get drunk and have their granite countertops and watch some football, they're just willing to go along to get along, and they're letting 5-year-olds get injected with experimental medicines, and you know, it's been shocking how spineless people have been, especially, you know, the big tough guy, you know, macho men, but the women too. So they've been pretty spineless, but they're going to start getting angry en masse, in mass. So that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. I don't advocate violence, but I don't have any control of what people do. And if anybody's listening, you know, who we would call a deep stater, I mean, all this is recorded by NSA, but if any of you are fucking watching this, you're really fucking yourselves. You're backing wild animals into a corner, and there's no chance, there's no telling what the fuck's gonna happen. And I know you're manipulating that a little bit and trying to get reactions out of people, but it's gonna grow beyond your control, so have fun with that one. You people are pretty fucked. You should just quit right now. Especially you civil servants. The billionaires who really own your agencies don't give a fuck about you. So, and you're not a hero. You know, spies are never heroes because they're liars. So, you know, I learned this from the intelligence community. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't do that duty and be a hero at the end of the day. So you might as well quit right now. Moving on to third house for America. Aquarius. Aquarius is we the people for the whole world. It's also science. It's the future. You've got Jupiter and Neptune both in there. They're pretty far apart. Jupiter at 4 degrees, Neptune at 26. They're going to meet up next year. I'm looking forward to this. Jupiter is the defender of humanity because Jupiter is also Thor and, you know, Zeus, all the thunder gods, Indra. But Jupiter is a bringer of blessings and truth and, you know, good fortune and goodwill and all that stuff. Neptune is a co-ruler, from my reckoning, co-ruler of Pisces. Neptune is the god of the ocean. Water is always emotional. So the ocean is emotions. So Neptune rules the deep emotions, the deep unconscious emotions. Neptune also rules virtual reality. All visual media that comes through electronics and even newspapers, it's all virtual reality, because you are getting a filtered view, a filtered perspective of something that happened in real time. It's been edited and it's been run through somebody else's filter. So Neptune does deal with deception because media by nature has a spin on it. Whoever sponsors it gets the privilege, well, actually gets the right to put their spin on it because they paid the money. So Neptune deals with deceptions, but Neptune is also very divine. Neptune will also disclose and reveal things to you. It depends where you meet Neptune on its vibrational scale, so relatively lower or relatively higher. So when Jupiter and Neptune meet up, it can be pretty amazing. And they're going to meet at 29 degrees of Pisces, I think end of the winter, into the spring. And they're going to meet, they're almost being Pisces. They're going to meet at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So it's like the gateway to Pisces. So that's going to be really powerful. And this is going to be a time when people either drink more Kool-Aid, or if they haven't seen what's going on already, they're going to. So, and you see this, you see humanity parting ways slowly. Fifth house, Aries, you've got Uranus retrograde. This is interesting. This is where Uranus was in 1937. No, excuse me, 1938. So we're in about 1938. Next year, Uranus is going to get to where it was in 1939 when World War II kicked off. So Uranus shakes things up, turns things over, turns things on their head. Uranus is doing this to leadership because Aries is leadership for the whole world. For America, the fifth house, which is Aries, it deals with speculation, like playing the stock market. That's going to get shooken up. But it also deals with politics because fifth house deals with performance art. Politics is a performance art. And it deals with fun, things like fun, romance, art. And all that stuff has been hindered with all these lockdowns and stuff like that. So yeah, Uranus is really shaking things up. Taurus, you've got Rahu, the North Node, the dragon's head, at 7 degrees of Taurus. This is where it was in the spring of 2003 when the United States invaded Iraq to overthrow Saddam Hussein and his government. So karmically, we're back to 2003 in a way. Time moves forward, but it's also circular. It's kind of a long spiral. It's a long circular spiral. So we have WMDs all over again, and really the WMDs were a test with the letters of P and R and C, and P and C and R, and the efficacy and the accuracy of that test was what all these lockdowns were based on. That was the assumption they were based on, and CEC says they need a new test that's no good. So that is the evidence of the WMDs. We're dealing with it all over again. This is a version of the invasion of Iraq, all these lockdowns, that is friendly to kind of the passive-aggressive, wimpy left. It's the left's version of the invasion of Iraq and a war on terror. A lot of people on the right are extremely wimpy too, but they just love an aggressor. They love somebody who toughs talk and who talks tough. And a lot of them like to talk tough. I'm tongue-tied. But we're back there. It's just a left-friendly version. These two parties, it's just an asshole aggressor versus a passive-aggressive person that wants you to think they're nice even though they're not. So that's pretty interesting. Today, the moon... So we're basically in a Kala Sarpa yoga, by the way. That's when all of the planets are on one side of the nodal axis, the Rahu, and K2 axis. But the moon moves fast, so it goes in and out, so the moon kind of doesn't count when it comes to Kala Sarpa. But today the moon is in Cancer. It's in the 8th house for America. So this 8th house deals with deep unconscious emotions. It also deals with conspiracies, mysteries, scandals, taboos, all that fun stuff. Deals with magic, occultism. So our minds are really, the minds of a lot of people, I should say, are really tuned into these scandalous, conspiratorial undercurrents that are going on right now. And again, it doesn't take an astrologer to tell you that, but it's written in the hologram in the sky. And then, no planets till we get to Scorpio, which is the 12th house for America. Scorpio is the original sign of the 8th house, which deals with taboos, scandals, conspiracies, hidden things of all shapes and forms. You've got K2 and Mars in there. So K2 and Mars, that is a conjunction that lays the foundation for explosive things to happen. So, that can deal with like extremism, because K2 is like a spiritual ascetic, like a spiritual practitioner that just wants out of the material world. And these people can get very extremist. Mars is the warrior planet. So you mix those two together, and they're both at home in Scorpio. That's a lot of fire building. I think it's going to be the 30th where this fire starts exploding out. But that's a lot of fire. It's stirring a lot of anger in people's deep emotions right now. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on today. Thought I'd give you a little walkthrough. But yeah, Winter Solstice, it's the day when we give thanks for the abundance of the previous year, and we sit down to rebirth ourselves in the new year. So that's my ramble for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have not had a reading with me, be that Vedic astrology or a rune reading, I highly recommend it. It helps you to reflect on yourself and your situations in life, and to understand your reoccurring patterns in life, especially if you feel like they're holding you back, or they're just plain annoying, or they're kind of chaotic. It's a way for you to take a deeper look at yourself and understand better. And most of the stuff we go over, they're things that you knew about yourself, but it just helps you to really run with what you intuitively knew. Helps your logical mind to get a grasp on it. And I custom build you a ritual and a meditation for any of these readings. And I've got some videos on the site for download, Qigong instructional videos, great mind-body practice for centering, for grounding, for boosting your health, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So thanks for tuning in, and you'll be seeing more of me. Have a nice one.